Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, I greatly appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. And coming up, we are going to preview this Eagles-Commanders game as the Birds hit the road to take on Washington in Week 16. All going to go down at Northwest Stadium in Landover, Maryland. The naming rights for the Commanders Stadium changing, otherwise known in the past as FedEx Field, where Philadelphia's had a lot of great moments and a lot of success. Kickoff set for 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And the Birds, even though they've won 10 games in a row, hottest team in football, only 3-point favorites. I find that line to be very interesting, especially considering how they fared against Washington back in November and the over-under at 45 even. Before we do our preview, the best preview that you'll find between these two teams on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and join us for our Eagles Now watch party on Sunday. It all gets started with an hour pregame show, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific is when we will get started. We'll do that pregame show, then during the game. The best place to experience an Eagles game day outside of being at the actual game. Live play-by-play, audience interaction, instant reaction, super chat giveaways, a Venmo 50-50 race, and then after the game, we'll be doing that post-game show. We're also on our road to 100,000 subscribers, and once we get there, we get that silver plaque from YouTube, and we're going to have a celebration right here on the channel. And in the meantime, we're closing in on 95,000 subs, only 193 people away from that milestone, so be sure to hit that subscribe button for daily videos like this one, covering the Birds, and year-round coverage of the Eagles as well. The mission is simple for Philadelphia on Sunday. If the Eagles beat Washington, the Birds win their second NFC East title in 3 years, and they will host at least one playoff game. Of course, the bigger picture is much larger than that. Eagles shooting for the number 1 seed in the NFC and to bring home that second Lombardi trophy to the city of brotherly love. But it all starts with winning the division at first, which can happen on Sunday. And what a run it's been for Philadelphia here during the 2024 campaign after that slow and uneven start, which had a little bit of drama. People were calling for Nick Sirianni's head. The Eagles, since the bye week, have won a franchise record 10 games in a row. They're looking to make it 11 straight against their division rival. And it all started with that 20-16 win over the Browns. Then the Eagles go on the road. They pummel the New York Giants 28-3. They polished off the Cincinnati Bengals in the second half of that ball game on the road, 37-17. Close win against Doug Peterson and the Jags, 28-23. Thank you, Nakobe Dean, for that interception in the end zone. 34-6 win over the banged-up Cowboys, in which the Eagles forced a plethora of turnovers at Jerry World. And then the Eagles beat the Washington Commanders 26-18. That game looked a lot closer as we flipped the page here than what the scoreboard indicated, because the Commanders scored that garbage time touchdown, 24th quarter points in that game for Philadelphia. And then Saquon Barkley rushes for 250 yards against the Los Angeles Rams in that 37-20 win on the road, 24-19 win against the Ravens. Really good matchup between two physical teams. A little bit of a trap game averted by the Eagles. 22-16 win over the Panthers 2 weeks ago. And then on Sunday, another impressive win against a playoff team, 27-13 in the Keystone State rivalry game. And the Steelers still have not won in Philadelphia since 1965. So in summary, that is 6 wins by 8+ points for the Birds. And 5 of those 10 wins have been by double digits. Very impressive. And the Eagles' formula during that winning streak, they have had the best defense in the NFL all year. They've had the best run game in the league, averaging nearly 190 yards per matchup. They have dominated games in the second half, really wearing down the opposition, playing that trademark Philadelphia blue-collar bully ball. They have forced turnovers on defense, played clean offensively, not putting the ball into harm's way, and they've been able to win blowouts. They've been able to win close games. They've taken care of business against inferior opponents. They've taken care of business against playoff teams. But Chase, what about the Eagles' resume? This is the funniest thing from detractors of the Eagles. People will say they have had a cakewalk during this 10-game winning streak. First of all, bad teams in the NFL don't win 10 games in a row. Secondly, they've beaten 5 playoff teams so far this season. NFC East Standings, of course, that's of note in this ball game. The Birds 12-2, 3-game lead over Washington, both in the win column and the loss column, with both of these teams, of course, having their respective byes with 3 weeks to go. The Commanders would have to win this game. Eagles would have to lose it and lose out, and the Commanders would have to win out in order to win the NFC East. This division is there for Philadelphia. When I scout the Commanders, pretty much view them the same way that I viewed them a few weeks ago. They started off 7-2. They have cooled since then, 2-3 in their last 5 games. It's been a good story year for Washington as they have rebuilt the team with this new regime, new general manager in Adam Peters, new head coach in Dan Quinn, new franchise quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Some talent, but not enough talent for them to go on a playoff run, I don't think. I think Washington is going to be one and done. This could very easily be a 7-2 matchup between the Commanders and the Eagles in the first round. Jaden Daniels has had a classic rookie year, got humbled in week 1, caught fire. He's since cooled down. He's been up and down. That's what you would expect for a rookie quarterback. This league ain't easy. I will say that the Commanders' defense has gotten a boost because Marshawn Lattimore, after that trade deadline acquisition, made his debut last week against his former team on the road against New Orleans, and he played very well. We'll talk more about his impact coming up here in just a bit. As for the Commanders' last 5 games, in which they've gone 2-3, they had that Hail Mary win over the Chicago Bears, and the DMV was going crazy. Since then, they've come back to life a little bit. 28-27 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Controversial ending in that game. They lose to the Eagles 26-18. They lost to the Dallas Cowboys 34-26. That game was just insane in the last few minutes. They dump trucked the Tennessee Titans 42-19 and blew them out starting in that first quarter. And then they hold on to win 20-19 on the road against the Saints. The officials stopped the clock. That allowed the Saints to have a chance to win that ball game, and then the Commanders got that stop on the 2-point conversion to win that game, and it looks as though they're at least going to be a double-digit win squad. The NFC Playoff Picture going into Week 16. Because the Lions own the tiebreaker over Philadelphia, even though they have the same record at 12-2, Lions still have the number 1 seed in the NFC. Philadelphia, the number 2 seed. The Buccaneers, some movement there. They are now in first place of the NFC South, 8-6, and they move up to that 3 spot. The Rams are in that 4 hole. Movement there as well because they are now leading the NFC West, overtaking the Seattle Seahawks, who lost on Sunday night to the Green Bay Packers. Minnesota beats the Bears on Monday Night Football. So 3 teams who are 12-2, Detroit, Philadelphia, and Minnesota. You have the Packers at 10-4. The NFC North is loaded. I feel bad for Caleb Williams. And then the Washington Commanders there holding on to that final wild card spot at 9-5. Other teams in the mix, Seattle at 8-6. They're probably going to have to win the division in order to make the playoffs. I don't think 2 teams from the NFC West get in. And then you have Atlanta and Arizona at 7-7. In the previous matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders on November 14th at the Link, Eagles got off to a slow start. Their offense was anemic, not good. And them getting off to slow starts outside of the Pittsburgh game has been a problematic storyline for the Eagles this year. They had 3 first-half points against the Commanders. Dan Quinn's defense was playing very well. The Eagles then had 6 points in the first 3 quarters, and then Saquon Barkley pops off. The Eagles explode for 20 fourth-quarter points. And in that fourth quarter, Saquon Barkley had 2 touchdowns in 10 seconds. It went from a close game to a blowout in the span of literally 10 seconds. And the Commanders, what their formula is going to be in this game, like it was back on November 14th, they want to muddy this game up as much as possible because the talent deficit is there for Washington. Eagles are the better, more talented team, and the only way that the Commanders can win is if they muddy it up, force a bunch of turnovers. As for some Eagles injury news, Jalen Hurts went to Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday with that splint on his ring finger. It is broken. He said it's been broken well before that. It is impacting his play, but he had his best passing game of the season against that really good Steelers defense on Sunday. Saquon Barkley Missed a lot of that first half with what some people were calling a leg injury. It's a little bit of a mystery. He said it's nothing serious. He should be able to go. A.J. Brown, classic hip drop tackle. It wasn't penalized at the time. I'm not sure why. If you're going to implement that rule, why not actually call it during the games? He said he's okay. That was a scary moment. It looked like that Terrell Owens type of injury back in 2004 when he was tackled in that game against the Dallas Cowboys. It caused him to shatter his ankle. He made it back for the Super Bowl, but A.J. Brown said he's good. He, too, should be okay to play against Washington as well. We're only starting to take flight with our Eagles-Commanders preview. First, I want to ask you this. Who you got? PHI for the Birds, WAS for the Commanders. Let me know down in the comment section. I'll give you my score prediction coming up here in just a little while. Our sponsor for today's preview, our friends at ZBiotics. Right now, you get 15% off at zbiotics.com/chatsports. You can utilize that link to see for yourself, or you can scan the QR code, which is on your screen right now as well. Have you ever skipped a workout because of drinks the night before? Me too. If you're committed to your healthy routine this year, you need ZBiotics pre-alcohol. We all have busy lives these days, especially with the holiday season coming up. You can't afford to waste a day stuck on the couch because of a few drinks. I know somebody here at Chat Sports that happened to the other day. ZBiotics pre-alcohol is the answer we've all been looking for. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. But that is until I found ZBiotics pre-alcohol, the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, let's go heavy science here. Alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. And just remember, to drink this probiotic before drinking alcohol, drink responsibly, of course, and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. First time I used ZBiotics was after a watch party, and before a watch party, I felt great the next day because you all know how hard we go. So stay in the loop and go to zbiotics.com/chatsports. You can also scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your order when you use CHATSPORTS. That's Chat Sports at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription. It's all backed with the 100% money-back guarantee. We'll put that link down below in the show notes, and we'll attach it to the pinned comment of today's Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we move forward with our preview. Coming up, this is what the Philadelphia Eagles must do in order to win their 11th game in a row, take down the Washington Commanders, and if they do that on the road, they will win the NFC East. First, let's set the foundation and take a look at how the Commanders stack up and how Philadelphia stacks up on both sides of the football. The Commanders' offense statistically this year, top 10 unit all across the board. Sixth scoring offense in the NFL at 28.3 points per game. Fifth in yards picked up per matchup at 373.9. They're ninth in yards per play at 5.8. Sixth on third downs. Number 7 in the red zone, meaning they're scoring a touchdown when they get inside the 20 at a 60% clip. They're explosive. They've been efficient. They've been a really good offensive unit, all things considered, with a rookie quarterback under center and in the shotgun. That's a credit to Cliff Kingsbury for the work he's been able to do with the inexperienced quarterback in Jaden Daniels. Defensively, they have some talent, but they're a little bit thin as far as depth, and that secondary has really struggled this year, although Marshawn Lattimore is back for Washington. He made a season debut last week, 16th in points per game given up at 22.5, 11th in yards per game, 16th in yards per play, 22nd on third downs, and 29th in the red zone. So offensively, the Commanders doing a good job of keeping drives going and converting on third downs, and then capitalizing in the red zone. Defensively, though, struggling to get off the field and struggling to keep teams out of the paint. As for how the Eagles stack up, 8th scoring offense in the league at 26.4. That's okay when you have the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL at 17.6. Elsewhere offensively, the Birds 6th in yards per game at 373.2, 11th in yards per play at 5.7, 7th on third downs. They've gotten better in that category over the last several weeks. The same can be said for their red zone efficiency. They're up to 58.1%. That's 11th. And look at Vic Fangio's defense. 1st in points per game. 1st in yards per game, under 276. 1st in yards per play at 4.7. Number 2 on third downs. Number 4 in the red zone. The turnaround from last year to this year, unbelievable. If there was a Coordinator of the Year award, it would definitely go to Vic Fangio. And with that, that leads me into this, my keys to the game for Philadelphia. This might sound corny, it might sound cliche, but sometimes it comes down to simplicity. What the Eagles have to do is take care of business. They have to avoid the trap game because the mission is simple. The Eagles beat Washington. They win the NFC East, their 2nd divisional championship in 3 years. They've really run this division since the year 2000. It's been great for me growing up watching this Eagles squad led by Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman. And if the Eagles win the division, that means they host at least one playoff game. But, of course, they're setting their sights to trying to get that number 1 seed and home field advantage coming through Lincoln Financial Field in South Philadelphia. This is the easiest pathway in order for them to achieve that. Number 1, they take care of business. They win out on the road against Washington, at home against Dallas, at home against New York. They will then need the Lions to lose at least one game. The Lions on the road against Chicago, at San Francisco, home against Minnesota. The Vikings need to lose at least one game as well. They beat the Chicago Bears on Monday night. Then they are on the road against Seattle, at home against Green Bay, and then at Detroit. So both Detroit and Minnesota, much more difficult schedules as compared to Philadelphia here. This division, it is Philadelphia's to win. But the path to home field advantage is easiest by winning out. That has to start against Washington. And how do you avoid a trap game? Continue to play the way that you've been playing. Really good on offense, elite on defense. You play clean. You don't cough it up. You don't play sloppy, and you play up to your standard. We have also witnessed some awesome Eagles fan environments. And I expect that to be the case with Eagles fans taking over the joint in the DMV on Sunday. And when the Eagles are on the road against Washington, it just adds a little bit of juice to the game because there's so much midnight green and Kelly green all throughout that stadium. Key to the game number 2, continue to stay balanced on the offensive side of the football. We finally saw that against Pittsburgh. What did it result in? 27 points against one of the league's best defenses and a team in Pittsburgh that is a Super Bowl contender. The Eagles as a squad are their most dangerous and most difficult to beat when they are a balanced football team. And that was made possible against Pittsburgh because the pass game came alive, led by Jalen Hurts. His best game throwing since probably the 2022 season, all things considered, with how good he was in all facets. Long ball, short intermediate, accurate, decisive with his reads, money on third downs. The Eagles were also great on fourth downs on the day. Hurts 25 at 32, 290 yards, 9.1 yards per completion, 3 total touchdowns, no picks. 2 of those tutties coming through the air. 1 to A.J. Brown, 1 to Devontae Smith, and a quarterback rating, or a passer rating, of 125.3. And just imagine this, right? You're game planning against Philadelphia, and you're a defensive coordinator, and you're saying, okay, at the point of attack, we're going to have a difficult time. Our work is going to be cut out for us because the Eagles' offensive line is elite. Then you try to stop Saquon Barkley. Well, the Eagles against the Steelers proved if you stop our run game, then the defense has to worry about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And when Jalen Hurts is playing like that and he's playing confident and the pass game is humming, you have that run-pass clicking with the Eagles' defense being what it is. That's why Philadelphia right now is looked at as a Super Bowl threat. And that's why, in my opinion, they're the most all-around team in football right now because they are playing great ball offense, defense, special teams, and they're just complete with a lot of talent and really good coaching. Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio, and Kellen Moore. Key to the game number 3, there will be opportunities for running success on the ground for Philadelphia. So while it's important to stay balanced offensively, you never want to go away from your strengths as a football unit. And a lot of people have asked me, Chase, how close is Saquon Barkley to breaking Eric Dickerson's record for the most rushing yards in a single season? He is under pace right now because he's cooled off a little bit since that Rams game. But right now, he still has an opportunity to set that record. He's already taken down LaShawn McCoy for the most rushing yards in a single season in franchise history. But Eric Dickerson for the Rams back in 1984 had 2,105 rushing yards in 16 games. Saquon will have 17 games to do that if he's able to stay healthy. So maybe a little bit of an asterisk there. Barkley right now through 14 games, 285 carries, 1,688 yards. His carries and rushing yards still leads the NFL, 5.9 yards per carry, 11 touchdowns, and then his rushing yards per game at 120.6 also lead the National Football League. And this Commanders team against the run, it has been a leaky valve for Washington this season. Rush play percentage at 47.2%. That's 28th. So teams actually like to air it out a lot against Washington because of that bad secondary. But yards per carry, 4.8, 28th among 32 teams. Rushes per game, 27.8. The Eagles run it about 36, 37 times per game on average. Rushing yards per game, Commanders rank 25th at 132.1. And then rushing touchdowns given up, 0.9. That's 15th. But with the brotherly shove and with Saquon Barkley, the Eagles average a lot of rushing touchdowns per game. They've been around 2 all year. Key to the game number 4, A.J. Brown against Marshawn Lattimore. This was not a matchup that we got to see in the previous matchup between these two teams in middle November because Marshawn Lattimore did not play. Missed a lot of time with that hamstring injury, a marquee trade deadline acquisition for this Washington team, which had to make a move because they've been bad in that secondary and they just let go of Emmanuel Forbes a couple of weeks ago. And Lattimore made his Commanders debut on Sunday in that skinny win over New Orleans. He played 49 of 51 snaps on the road. He was not targeted at all. He didn't appear on the stat sheet. When you are a running back, quarterback, wide receiver, usually that's not good if you're not on the stat sheet, right? In fact, it's always not good. When you are a corner and you're not on the stat sheet, that's a good thing. If you're not getting targeted, that means that you're blanketing that wide receiver. And if you don't have any stats, that means that you held it down on the outside all throughout the course of that ball game. And with Lattimore back, it allowed the Commanders to have their best defensive personnel in the secondary, and their alignment worked to their advantage. Noah Igbenogany, he was in the slot. The rookie Mike Sainristil, who was really good against Philadelphia in that previous matchup, was on the outside. And Mike Sainristil, Marshawn Lattimore on the outside, that is a very solid cornerback tandem for this Commanders defense. Key to the game number 5. Eagles are going to have disciplined pass rush lanes given the mobility of Jaden Daniels. We saw on that 4th down, he tried to get to the outside. The Eagles were so disciplined there, not letting him get to the outside. They had that huge 4th down stop, which really changed the game back in November. And then take away sideline throws. If you look at Jaden Daniels' throwing chart, loves to target the boundary. This is something that I talked about in the previous matchup. This is something that Bill Belichick had noted too when he was not a head coach for North Carolina, and he was doing a lot of media work and film study on Jaden Daniels. He loves to throw toward the sideline. And with the way that the Eagles secondary has been playing, they've been able to limit those sideline throws. That is something that Russell Wilson does so well and has done so well throughout his career. Eagles didn't give up explosive plays in the pass game against Russ in general, but also down that sideline. Daniels, what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do, get the ball out of his hands very quickly so that he can be accurate, have easy throws to complete, and that's why he's completing 70.5% of his passes, and he's thrown for more than 3,000 yards, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. Of course, Terry McLaurin, the number 1 for that Commanders team. Look out for him. After he got shut down by Quinyon Mitchell, he ran 25 routes back in November. 20 of them were matched up against Quinyon Mitchell. Quinyon Mitchell didn't give up a catch. He was phenomenal in that game. So predict the score. Eagles Commanders coming up on Sunday as the Birds hit the road once again. My prediction, I think the Eagles keep this train rolling. I think they win their 11th straight game. The offense puts up 30. The defense plays very well. Commanders get another garbage time touchdown. 30-20 is my final score.